Hello everyone and welcome. The 7th episode of Magia Record Anime has aired, and once again it's time for the differences and spoiler review. Once again, there will be spoilers for the Japanese and the North American version of the Magia Record game. So now, let's head right in with being sad that leg break didn't happen, and also let's just see what the game did. So we start off in the game at this point of the story where Yachio and Iroha are waiting for the return of Felicia, who just before this has been shown to be a spy that they have asked to go into the ranks of the Wings of Magius and just scout them out and see what's going on. But she's taking a bunch of time to come back. Wonder what's going on there. So Tsuruno then appears and she takes them to where they last saw Felicia before she disappeared. And we also see in the sort of cutaway where Felicia is talking to some Black Feathers that Felicia has been promised to be able to hunt witches solo as much as she wants to, and she's not going to get in anyone's way. Apparently that's good enough for her to stop being a spy and start being an earnest follower of the Wings of Magius. So the rest of the team, they want to catch up with where Felicia probably went missing, and they do this little gag where they want to jump from roof to roof, but Iroha doesn't want people to look up her skirt. Okay. Then when they appear at some undisclosed, unspecified location, Felicia appears to them, and she appears as an enemy, and she tells them like, okay, I'm actually not a spy anymore, I actually just joined them for real. And they're trying to appeal to her good side, like, Felicia, please don't do this. Aren't you a good person? And Iroha says to Felicia that something really bad is going to happen because of the rumor that they have been caught up with the misery water. And she tells her she's going to lose something important to her. And Felicia has something important to her. It's the stuffed cow plush toy. And Iroha says, yeah, you're definitely going to lose that. So Felicia doesn't want to lose her cow toy, so she joins the team again. It was that easy. At this point, Felicia then guides the rest of the team down into some place where the Oasa is, and it turns out it's below a school. That's where it is. Not quite sure why it's specifically below a school, but that's where it is. So once down there, they get ambushed by evil bats, and bats scare the team. Why are they scared of bats when they fight witches? Well, I guess that's something we don't have to worry about. They then get found by some Black Feathers who tell them to basically get lost, and the feather they meet, they talk about how important it is that they are trying to fight with the Wings of Magius to find salvation, and they want to be freed, to be released from this curse of the magical girls. And they say like, hey, Yachio, shouldn't you know about this? Wink, wink. So we're trying to get a bit more knowledge on who the Black Feathers are, but we're not going to do that, because instead we're just going to bonk them on the head, because Kyoko is here and she just smashes into the Black Feathers without asking twice, and they just completely roll over them. At this point then we move on to the next scene, and Iroha, having heard all of this, she wonders if maybe Ui is connected to the Magius, because Ui was talking some non-stop weird stuff, like a broken record, about the salvation that awaits people inside Kamihama City. And they're like, okay, but Magius, they also want salvation for magical girls. Maybe there's something of a connection going on there. We're going to have to find out some later point. But first, as they walk through the waterways down the school, they bump into two white feathers. And the two white feathers reveal themselves as the Nays. And they start fighting, and they use sound waves to incapacitate the main characters. How will we get out of this? Now, while they're fighting, Felicia, she then tries to sneak past all of this because she just wants to go to the Uasa and just smash some Uasa. But she gets held up by Tsuruno and Kyoko, who notice that she's trying to sneak away. And while they're like sort of bantering with each other and they're causing a ruckus, they realize, oh, the ruckus, that's having some sort of impact on the sound waves. So what they're doing is Kyoko, Felicia, and Tsuruno, they all start screaming really loud in order to counter the sound waves from the Nays, and it just works. So this amazing ability that the Nays have to incapacitate enemies using sound waves, you can just shout, and it gets countered, and they kind of lose at that point. So Iroha and Yachio, they fight the Nays head on and defeat them, but as they are defeated, it turns out that their soul gem has been really darkly corrupted and is about to erupt into a witch. But the Nays, they welcome this because they know that they're not going to witch out. they instead summon their doubles, Dumdi, although in the game they don't actually summon both their doubles, because at this point of the game, Tsukasa was still capped at 4-star, and you need to be a 5-star unit to have a double, so only Tsukuya used her double. But story-wise, that's just in-game stuff. Story-wise, they both used their doubles, it's just that in-game it wasn't represented well. So they used Dumdi as well, and they fight a bit more, and it doesn't really seem to do much. They just summon it, they attack, and the good guys are still like, oh man, that was a powerful attack, but we're still standing, didn't really do that much to us. And at least it also cleared the soul gems for the Nays, so the Nays, they get to continue fighting. That's pretty much the most important thing that thing did. They also then call more Black Feathers to help out and fight against the enemies. And at this point, Tsuruno and Yachio, they decide to fight the Nays together, 2 versus all of them. And the other 3, or at least Felicia at first, then decides to, you know what, I really don't care about this. Let's just go to the Uwasa together with Kyoko, because Kyoko is also like, hey, don't you want to smash some Uwasa instead of fighting some people? I don't care. And Iroha also goes and follows them later, and the 3 of them are now basically this temporary team of the Uwasa defeaters or something. And as they go over to fight the Uwasa, as the trio of them, Yachio and Tsuruno, they kind of don't want to deal with these brats anymore, so they go in. And Yachio breaks legs! Yeah! Yeah, Yachio just completely destroys legs, and Tsukuyo is having a really sad day. And in the meantime, Tsuruno is like, well, I'm not gonna break your legs, bud, and she punches him completely in the gut. And yeah, the Nays at this point are completely defeated, not just mentally, but physically as well. We'll see how they recover from that, because cutaway meanwhile, the trio has found the Ruma Labyrinth, and they start fighting the Uwasa. And it seems, or rather before they get to the Uwasa, they have to fight some minions, but as they fight minions, they are being like assaulted by this avalanche of bad luck. They keep tripping, bumping into stuff bumps into them from above. They're having a really hard time trying to get a bearing, and they're like, okay, in this Ruma Labyrinth, people have really bad luck. So once again, they fight some minions, but eventually they do end up meeting with the core of the Uwasa, the Misery Riton, and they try to fight the Riton, but the closer they get to this Uwasa, the more giant boulders start falling from the ceiling. We don't see any of this because they're just talking, so we're just like, oh no, boulders are falling from the sky, and we just don't see any of that. We just kind of have to go with it. That's kind of the problem when you just have a bunch of text and nothing visual to go along with it. So just imagine what's going on with this. So because they can't really get close, they try and find a plan, and the plan they have is they're just gonna have Felicia jump from one of the falling boulders and launch herself towards the Uwasa, hopefully so fast and so quick that she can dodge the falling boulders by being so fast. Wow. So they try this for a bunch, doesn't work, and they try some more, and it doesn't work, and they try some more, and then it just, at some point it just works. I guess the game just wanted to waste some more time, because the game likes doing that, just wasting time. So at some point, Felicia does actually end up managing to get close to the Misery Riton, but she has a problem. She can't really deal damage to it because in the story, like, it keeps happening. Uwasas are really tanky and they don't really take damage from anything, so the timer has almost ran out and they don't know what they're gonna do to beat this Uwasa. So Felicia just whacks the Uwasa over to the other two, over to Kyoko and Iroha. And with the added force of the Uwasa being mid-flight and they're attacking into it, that somehow deals enough damage to just kill the Uwasa, and everything's fine again. They've beaten the enemy. Yay. They all then get this piece of paper that says congratulations, and they're now all above ground again, somehow outside of the school. And all up there they meet everyone who was also with them. The Nays, I think, are still there, and Yachio and Tsuruno are also there. So basically everyone's fine and together again and having a happy old day. Well, the Nays, I guess, aren't that happy. But before they can worry about the Nays, someone appears. Mifuyu appears alone, and of course, seeing Mifuyu, Tsuruno runs over and she glomps Mifuyu and tells her that she wants Mifuyu to come back, and she's going to throw a party at Banbansai. Of course, hearing Banbansai, Mifuyu is like, please, no, not Banbansai. So Mifuyu somehow also knows about the Seance Shrine and what happened in there. That's kind of weird. I mean, just a spoiler review, so I can just tell you that in Mifuyu's backstory, that is not part of main story, so it's some side story, it is revealed that Mifuyu has set up the Seance Shrine with the express purpose to trap Yachio so that Yachio cannot be a thorn in their side anymore. At least until everything is over, and then once everything is over and they've achieved salvation, then they would release Yachio. That was kind of the point. So yeah, that didn't work because Iroha was there, and a whole bunch of other stuff happened as well. So at this point, yeah, so we know that, at least because of that backstory, we know that she knew about the Seance Shrine. At this point in the game, in the main story, we have no idea. So they talk a bit more, and Yachio wants to convince Mifuyu to come back, and she gets a bit emotional about it, but she fails, of course, to get Mifuyu to come back, because Mifuyu is all like, I'm evil now, or at least I'm part of this evil group now, but I'm still a good guy, right? Mifuyu is making such bad mistakes all the time. We also hear that Mifuyu is mentioning that something really terrible happened a year ago, and that changed everyone. And it also changed Yachio, so we get more of these hints that, oh, something has happened, we don't know what, but something did happen. At this point, then Mifuyu and the niece, they retreat. They didn't mention the broken legs again, but yeah, one of the nieces is gonna have to do some extra healing back at base now. We then see at the end of all of this, before Mifuyu is just out of sight, Iroha goes, wait a second, Mifuyu, do you know Ui? And Mifuyu is like, nah, but she could be a feather in the wings of Magia's. I don't know. This is kind of random, because Mifuyu really doesn't know anything. She's just like, yeah, maybe she's a feather, I don't know. At this point, everyone leaves, Kyoko leaves as well. She's like, see ya. And Iroha, as Kyoko's about to leave, tells her like, hey, mommy still kind of thinks I'm a witch. Can you like tell her that I'm not a witch? And Kyoko agrees. Yeah, why not? Then in the next scene, as the rest of the team is going home, Iroha is like, well, it kind of sucks that I wasn't able to find Nemo, and she kind of gives up on that part. And we get, for some reason, another joke on how old Yachio is. So because Felicia still had this dinner promised from Iroha still wants to bake some food for Felicia, and Iroha also tells Felicia that she should stop being a mercenary because it's really dangerous to her and people around her, but Felicia of course doesn't want to because it's all she has. So instead, Yachio invites Felicia to stay with her, right there on the spot. And Tsuruno also then says, well, if you want a job, you can part-time at Banbansai. And you also get free food if you do that. So everything is working out perfectly fine for Felicia. Yay! At some point later then, also Yachio invites Iroha to stay over because Iroha, of course, still needs a place to stay. So Yachio tells her that she can stay over at Mikasuki Villa. But of course, or rather, while this happens, Yachio once again calls Iroha a friend, even though Iroha still thinks that she's supposed to be her assistant, not her friend, right? So in order to make sure that this move to Mikasuki Villa can happen for Iroha, Yachio just walks over or drives over with the train to Iroha's house and talks to her parents. And her parents are totally fine that this top model is decided to let Iroha stay at her house. Sure, they like that, I guess. And while Yachio and Iroha are back at Iroha's room, they then sleep. No, they then notice that, of course, yes, half the room is gone. Yachio notices this as well. And that, of course, makes Yachio now also fully believe that something terrible has happened to Ui, but we don't know what, a mystery. And this is where this chapter ends, with that little hook at the end. They're like, oh, this is mystery, what is going on? We don't know. Well, that was all fine and all. We see that not a whole lot of that different stuff has happened from the anime, but what did happen in the anime? Let's start out with the first scene, which is, of course, the flashback to Felicia's backstory that we had hinted on in the last episode. And there's something really cool that happened here. Now, I talked a little bit about Felicia's backstory in the episode before this, in the Differences in Spoiler Review. So, to go over it very quickly, Felicia imagined that it was a witch that killed her parents, but that's not true. She accidentally killed her own parents by starting this fire that we see here. But when she made the wish rewrote her memories. So now she completely forgot about everything that happened and instead had new memories. And the new memories that she had were, a witch killed my parents. And then I made a contract with Cubey to fight witches. That's basically what she then had in her head. And that's also what we see. So what we see isn't actually what happened. We see a fake backstory for Felicia at this point. So don't believe anything you see here. It's all in the imagination of Felicia. Unless the backstory for Felicia is different in the anime, but I don't believe the anime has a different backstory for Felicia. So I do think that what we're seeing is all fake now, because there's also a very important detail in this. So we see that Felicia has imagined this silhouette, the shape of a witch, right? Now, knowing her backstory, you might be wondering, well, right when Felicia contracted and made that wish that changed her head, how did she know what a witch looked like? I mean, if we see what she tells herself happened in this flashback, how did she know that what she saw was the shape of a witch? Because she had to imagine it, right? She had to imagine it herself in her head, what a witch looks like. So how did she know what a witch looked like when she saw this shape? You can say, like, okay, Cubey afterwards told her it was a witch, but she still needed to imagine the shape. So she still needed to have the shape so that she can go off of that. And the cool part about that is that shape that we see of what she imagined is the only witch that she knew the shape of. Her own witch. Yes, she imagined the shape of the witch that she sees is her own witch, Beatrice. So she imagines this witch because it's the only shape that she knows. And you can tell me, like, okay, how did she know the shape of her own witch if she just contracted and just became a magical girl? This is something that I've always theorized on way before, like years ago even. I imagined, especially because of the different story, what happened in there is that magical girls have the subconscious idea of what their witch self is like. Because it's part of their self, right? Like the witch that comes forth from them is not a completely different entity. It still bursts forth from their own emotions. Like a witch is a personification of their negative emotions. So of course they are subconsciously aware of these negative emotions. And that's why I think the magical girls are indeed subconsciously aware of the shape of their own witch. And that is why she was able to imagine this shape of her own witch as killing her parents, because it's the only shape that she knew at that point, because she hadn't seen any other witch, because he just contracted. That's some really cool stuff at that point, and we're going to see some more cool stuff in that later as well, but let's keep going. So we then see that Felicia gets escorted by Ikumi and Yukika. It's a lot more obvious that the one in front is Ikumi, but I think you can tell that actually not quite sure if we can tell exactly at this point that the back one is Yukika, but Yukika appears later on as well, so I'm just assuming that this one is already Yukika. But we can tell that the front one is Ikumi because she appears in a lot of other spaces in this episode as well. I'm going to tell you later where the scene is where it's the most obvious that it's Ikumi. So then Felicia arrives in the waterways, and there she meets the Knees, and they talk a bit about, we are the wings of Magius, and we help the three Magius. I think this is also the point where they say that it's three Magius, because I don't think in the game they specifically mentioned that it's three Magius. They could have, I went over it a bit quickly, maybe. They then say, okay, if you work for us, you can achieve the eradication of all witches. Now in the game, the offer that they made was, in my opinion, a bit weak. They just say, if you help us, then you can fight witches alone without anyone getting on your nerves, because it was always a problem for Felicia that when she was hunting witches, she was like inconveniencing other people around her. She was being a problem to other people around her. So in the game, they basically say that she would just not be a problem to anyone anymore, and this promise is somehow enough to get her hooked. But in the anime, it makes a lot more sense to say, well, if we eradicate all witches, you would like that a lot more, right? So I can see that it makes a lot more sense in the anime because it's just a lot stronger of an idea to bait Felicia with. We then also see that Kyoko had already joined just before, so we also know that Kyoko has a completely different angle on this in the anime than in the game, but we're gonna get a little bit more on this later on. First off, though, we cut to a scene where Yachio has put a GPS transmitter on Felicia because she didn't trust Felicia. I also mentioned before that I didn't see any setup for this, and I talked to other people and I still couldn't find any anything that happened in the episode before this that might have set up a GPS transmitter being on Felicia. So this is just completely something that happened off screen, and we just kind of have to believe that that's what happened. But I can go with Yachio not trusting Felicia and doing something, because Yachio never trusts Felicia, at least up until the point where they move in. Yachio always talks to other people that they shouldn't trust Felicia in the game and in the anime, so you can at least see that it does have a root where it kind of makes sense to come from. Ultimately, they then arrive at the entrance to the waterways, which is just some nondescript building that Mokyu is waiting in front of. At least because they see Mokyu, they know they're in the right spot. So instead of Mokyu, like in the game, always being present, Mokyu just appears around Rumors and Uwasa just to signify that they're going the right way, and Mokyu is sort of like pointing them in the right way. So of course, in the game, the whole Uwasa part was below a school, which was a bit weird because they're in the sewers, in the waterways. What does it have to do with a school? Why does it have to be below a school? So they just went, okay, it's just beneath some building that's just entrance to the waterways. Don't care about where exactly it is, it's just somewhere on the ground. What does it even matter? So they enter, and we see another cutaway where Kyoko and Felicia talk a bit to each other again, and Kyoko once again mentions that someone is gathering witches in Kamihama, and even hints that it could be something that the Wings of Magius are doing, and saying because of this, if the Wings of Magius are monopolizing witches and grief seeds, then I want in on that. I also want to have the ability to fight witches. I want to have grief seeds, and if they give me some food and some place to stay as well, nice. So she's basically in it for herself. At this point, then Felicia randomly mentions her dead parents again, and Kyoko, of course, is like, yeah, I know what it's like. So ultimately, they arrive at the Uwasa, and we see some witch runes on some card, and the witch runes actually spell out Beatrice. I think that was the first time I could actually read witch runes without having to look up the alphabet, so I'm getting better at that, yay! And we also see later in plain text, it also says Beatrice Cenci. So Beatrice Cenci is, of course, someone who seems to be very important in the allusions here. And Beatrice Cenci is someone who killed her father with a hammer. And some girl killing her father with a hammer is actually something we also see visually represented on this card. So they're really driving home this point that we are trying to make a connection to Beatrice Cenci. Also, of course, Felicia's witch is called Beatrice, so they're saying Felicia is connected to Beatrice Cenci. How is she connected to her? Well, she has a hammer, and she killed her parents. Yay, that's the connection right there, and this episode really drives it home. Although if you are an anime only and you have no idea about Felicia's backstory as presented in the anime being fake, then you wouldn't know about any of this, but at least you get some hints that Felicia might have had some hand in this if you make the connection that Felicia is connected to Beatrice Cenci. It's quite of a reach, because you have to go by the visual of this girl killing someone with a hammer, saying, okay, hammer, wait a second, Felicia has a hammer, killing her own parents. Maybe you then look up at Beatrice Cenci and you're like, okay, wait a second, there's someone who killed her parents with a hammer, Felicia killing her own parents. Maybe Felicia has to do something with killing her own parents. It's quite a reach. You have to do so many weird reaches and have to go out of your way. So I don't think for anime only it makes sense to come to this conclusion that Felicia actually killed her own parents. It's quite a reach. But theoretically you could arrive there. That said, if someone online does come up with this connection, they 99.99% chance have the knowledge of her true backstory. And if you ask them and they say, no, I arrived at this myself using the hints the anime has given me, they're full of shit. No one's gonna actually find this out themselves without having the knowledge or being hinted at the right direction by someone who has the knowledge, okay? That said, now we can move on from this. So Felicia and Kyoko, they're given water, and because Kyoko doesn't really care too much about all this balance between luck and unluck, hope and despair, she kind of had enough of that, so she doesn't care. She just wants the grief seeds. But you don't need grief seeds in this city, Kyoko. And before the Nes can go on a bit more about what that actually means, Ikumi is there again. And the thing is, now we really see that it's Ikumi because of the hair once again, and more importantly the stockings or leggings that she has. Very telling that that's Ikumi. And I can tell you, I'm going to tell you later then where it is very obvious that the other one is Yukika. But yeah, Ikumi tells them that some intruder happened to enter the place. So Yachio, Tsuruno, and Iroha, I'm gonna call them Team Mikazuki again, they appear in the waterways and they get greeted by the Nes. And the Nes also once again talk a bit about what they want, who they are, that they are serving the Magias and stuff. And Felicia and Kyoko, they're also there, going, yup, hi. At this point, the Nes also drop this tiny little hint that what they're doing is specifically only for some people. So basically, what they're doing is specifically for magical girls, not for common people. So they're kind of okay with common people getting hurt. That's at least the implication here, even if it's not really being expanded upon. Something really extremely interesting and important happens at this point that is extremely important, probably, for the rest of the anime to take a look at. They use a little green cube, and this green cube has inside of it a witch labyrinth that it unfolds. And as it unfolds, we see, of course, the cursive writing, the handwriting of Alina Grey. So Alina Grey has given the Nes one of her labyrinths to use. And as the labyrinth unfolds, we see it's the labyrinth of the symbol witch, who is not currently present, but some of her familiars are present. I think there's 2 big familiars of the symbol witch and a whole bunch of small minions, the echo minions that we've seen before. But this is really small visual details that is present on a lot of these minions that is really hard to see unless you're specifically looking at the design of these minions and compare them to other minions, which if you've played the game a lot is very easy because you instantly notice that these minions that you've already killed thousands of in the game suddenly look a bit different. And what looks different about them? They all have tiny paint splotches on them that are shimmering in these weird colors. Why do they all have paint splotches on them? These paint splotches look like they're made by Alina Grey's doppel, old Dorothy. What does that mean? This all means that this labyrinth has been tainted, has been influenced by Alina Grey's doppel. And it is this influence of the doppel that allows the Nes to control the minions in this labyrinth. Really cool part that might also have big implications for later if we are now just visually at least setting up for people that know about it that they can control witches and minions using these paint splotches that later get connected to Alina Grey, meaning they might expand more on Alina Grey being able to control witches, which of course with Walpurgisnacht at the end, yes, that's how I pronounce it, Walpurgisnacht, that means that at the end of this they can potentially just say, instead of Alina Grey doing this whole fur god just corrupting her brains or whatever, and then has Nemo suicide into her, it's like whatever weird shit happens there, they can just go, Alina Grey is going to use her doppel to take control of Walpurgisnacht. That is now a real possibility because it is being set up now already that Alina Grey's doppel can control minions. I hope we see something like that because it wouldn't change the ending. The ending would pretty much be the same. It would just not fuck up Alina's character and actually give her something to do other than just going like, "Oh, I'm crazy," and then running away while getting shot at. I don't know. Well, let's hope that something like this happens because I would really love to see something like this happen. But moving on, now we see that the team, they fight the minions and they banter a bit and they're like, no, you can't beat all witches, it's not possible. And Felicia then protects Iroha because she, of course, on one hand, she doesn't want to see people getting hurt, but more so, Felicia really loves to smash. She really loves to smash. So anyway, I started smashing, and she just smashes everything around her, and Iroha connects with her right away. This causes Felicia to be able to spam her Magia, ultra great big hammer, and she just smashes around everywhere. Kyoko, seeing all of this, kind of doesn't want to follow the wings anymore. She didn't really have her heart in it before, and with everything that she's heard, and more importantly, everything that she's seeing now, that the Nays are using witch minions that they're controlling to fight against people they don't like, doesn't sit well with Kyoko, so she kind of betrays the Nays and starts fighting for the good guys. And we see that she even opens up a way for Iroha to get to the Uwasa, and she even protects Iroha as she goes there. So basically what we take away from all of this, that Kyoko is a lot more altruistic in the anime, at least towards the end there. In the game, the entire time, Kyoko wanted to really do her own thing, and she only really joined up with the protagonists because she happened to also be caught in the rumor. So because she was caught in the rumor, she kind of had to go after the rumor, and she just teamed up with the rest of the team because that makes it more likely to succeed, right? Of course, she does say towards the end in the game that she wanted to ditch everyone and just go after the rumor herself, but then decided not to. So it's like, okay, Kyoko has a little character moment where she realizes that friendship is important and you have to fight together. And you see this a lot more pronounced in the anime, that she basically just tells the Nays to get lost, and instead she does these altruistic actions for Iroha, making sure that Iroha can get to the Uwasa, not without being asked. She just does this on herself and even protects Iroha. Very nice of you, Kyoko, to do that. So even though Kyoko, once again, was initially more egoistic, now she's a lot more altruistic. Cool. We then see that Iroha fights the Uwasa, and we also see the design of the Misery Riton, which I think we also saw before. And the Misery Riton looks quite different. First off, it now has an owl head instead of this weird eye, which I think makes more sense because it's supposed to be like an owl water, and even in the game it was supposed to be connected to owls. So it makes more sense that the Riton itself has an owl face, but also it looks a lot weaker, it looks a lot more shit, to be honest. It looks a little bit, it looks quite dinky and unimpressive and rather small. In the game, it looks weird, but when they start fighting it, it actually seems rather imposing, because you know how strong Felicia is, and Felicia whacks into it with all her power and she doesn't make a dent, so it seems really powerful in the game. But here it's just some drinking horn or whatever, it just looks weird. By the way, a Riton is like an old Greek drinking horn or something like that. The Rumor minions also look very different. They have a different looking owl face, and they don't have this bucket body that they use in the game. So in the game they look also, so it's different. What their philosophy is, I mean what the design philosophy is. So in the game the Riton looks more imposing, and in the anime looks more dinky, looks more shit. But now in the anime, the minions look more imposing, the minions look more powerful and impressive, while in the game they looked like shit. They looked like they were really weak and unimpressive. I mean, they have this really goofy face, and they have a bucket that they throw at their enemies. It's like, what? So they kind of switched it around. Now the Riton is the weak part, and the minions are the strong part, instead of the other way around in the game. Don't know why they did that. Maybe they wanted to focus more on Iroha having trouble with the minions, because in the game, the Riton doesn't actually fight itself, it just makes boulders rain from the top, and that might be a really weird way to fight, and they wanted to have a more direct fight against an enemy. And because they didn't really know what to do with a direct fight against the Riton, they just say, okay, no, she now directly fights the minions instead, which in the game they sort of just ran past. So now, since Iroha directly fights the minions, they wanted to make the minions more impressive and the actual core less impressive. So this is what happens, but before the fight really happens, we then cut back again to Kyoko and Felicia continuing to fight minions, and we're giving a lot more time to Felicia stating why she does what she does, while Kyoko tells her to be a magical girl for her own sake. So already we see that the anime gets a lot more into Felicia and her backstory and what she's trying to do now, into her future, all of that stuff. So Felicia, she ultimately shatters the labyrinth by defeating some familiars, and as the labyrinth shatters, we see that the Nays are having trouble, but they summon Dundee. They don't combine. There is a combined form of Dundee that we see in their swimsuit version. We don't see this here. Maybe we see it at some later point where they do the Gatai and do Dundee together in one form, because we see that they're both two halves, right? There is a combined form of them. So while they fight, we then cut back again to Iroha, who is fighting against the minion, but she's having trouble, and she's now protected by good luck. So we see it's also everything has turned around. Instead of them now having been pelted with bad luck all the time, and they have to fight the rumor while it's sort of trying to mitigate the bad luck they're getting. Now instead, she's getting good luck, and it's all about trying to defeat the enemy before the good luck runs out. So the good luck is slowly running out as she is dodging all of these attacks. And at the end of this, Iroha is having trouble to fight. You know, remember in the game, they were 3 people fighting them. And like Kyoko was there, Felicia was there. They were both really powerful. Iroha was sort of just watching, doing all of that. So now without them, with just solo Iroha, what is she gonna do? What does solo Iroha do? So of course, Iroha just doubles again. Joanna appears once again, sort of giving us also more hints on who Joanna really is, or like what Joanna is like. Because I told you before that Joanna is the doppel of silence. So we get Joanna to talk a bit more about this. Really cool touches, by the way. I really love the way doppels are handled. At least Iroha's doppel, because Dundee doesn't really do much. Dundee just does a bunch of attacks while the Nays keep talking. I do like the idea that the Nays are able to control the doppels a lot better, and therefore they don't get the white face, they get to stay conscious, they can talk, they can still attack alongside their doppel. But on the other hand, the doppel doesn't really seem to do much. It just shoots some shots, and that's about it. Would have loved Dundee to actually be more imposing, more impressive, to be more dangerous. I'm always saying the same words, imposing, impressive. They're more dangerous, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of danger going from Dundee. Yeah, they dodge like one spear, and we see that they don't really take much damage from fire. That's basically what we see, and that's not really that impressive, in my opinion. Would have been a lot more impressive if they actually had bigger attacks, if they actually hit some of the good guys, if maybe the team like Yachio launched bigger attacks and have those be ineffective, other than these like dinky attacks they throw at them, and then, oh no, my weak attacks don't do anything. Dundee must be really strong, right? Anyway, after the Owasa has been defeated, Mifuyu then appears, and Mokyo disappears as well. Yeah, Mokyo disappears at some point. It's just like a half a second shot of Mokyo disappearing. So Mifuyu appears, and the Nays, they turn back, and they're all sad. At this point, we see once again Ikumi, and we also see on the other side Yukika, and it's a lot more noticeable that it is Yukika. First off, we see the hair at the side. More importantly, though, we see the chain. The chain is quite the big giveaway that it is Yukika. And we also, in another shot, we see her boots, which are also a big giveaway. You see the 2 feathers on the outside, they are just nondescript feathers. We don't even know who they are. But the 2 standing right next to Mifuyu, and they have quite a lot more features, and they're also, like we see their legs, for example, their boots, and we see their hair is a lot more pronounced. So yeah, it's Ikumi and Yukika. So Mifuyu has appeared, and the Nays, they turn back from the Dundee and walk back to Mifuyu, and at this point Tsuruno then glumps Mifuyu and is really happy. And once again, like I said in the other review, Mifuyu does this motion with her hand to tell the feathers to back off. We also get to see that the feathers, we know that of course they are magical girls that have their own weapons, but they don't use their own weapons. Instead they use these nondescript chain-like weapons. We don't really see them that much. We just see, I think, part of the hilts of whatever weapon they are using that like flash into the screen as Tsuruno is glomping Mifuyu. But I think, of course, I know that the reason for this is, of course, that they want to stay hidden. They don't want people to know who they are, because a lot of magical girls, like before the Wings of Magus happened, they know each other, and they don't want, now that they are part of the Wings of Magus, they don't want their old friends to recognize them. So if someone knew Ikumi, for example, and they came into contact with her, Ikumi doesn't want them to realize that it is Ikumi. She wants to stay hidden. So she hides her outfit and she hides her weapon and instead uses nondescript weapons. That's basically the idea. So Tsuruno invites her back and also wants to throw a party at Bamansai, which of course shouldn't have said this because Mifuyu doesn't like Bamansai. No one likes Bamansai. Although people like Bamansai, that they just don't love it and they just aren't that big on actually going there. It's 50-50, you know? So Yachio mentions that she was led on this wild goose chase through all of these different rumors by Mifuyu's rumor files, which of course paints all of this rather differently, that in the game, Yachio of course was the one who wrote the rumor files and she was the one going all of these goose chases on her own accord to find Mifuyu. While in the anime now, it is said that basically Mifuyu has planted the rumor files probably in advance, maybe has planted them with the express goal of getting Yachio to be trapped in the Seian Shrine rumor, or just to get her on a track. Maybe she also kind of wanted to use this as a cry for help, saying that, hey, if I leave the rumor files for my ex-girlfriend, maybe at some point when I need help, she will be able to find me again. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely... She definitely had some reason in leaving the rumor files behind, because she could have just picked them up and left with the rumor files, but she left the rumor files back at Mikasuki Villa for Yachio to find. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So Mifuyu then actually does something interesting. She invites Yachio to join and once again reaffirms her goal of salvation. So Mifuyu and the Black Feathers, they come across a lot more reasonable in the anime. Like I said in the episode before, they give an out. They say, we can give you water every day. Like, we're sorry, but we can give you water every day. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna have good luck at least. And you can join us and we're gonna provide for you. And we don't want to fight you. They don't actually fight. In the game, we fought Black Feathers quite a lot at this point, because every single time any Black Feather appears, we're instantly clobbering them on the head without listening to them. But here in the anime, we're actually listening to them and we don't really seem to want to fight them that much, which is good. So they do seem like they actually mean what they say. They do seem like people who you could potentially trust if you believed in what they're believing in. And I like this. They seem a lot nicer in the anime. So, but still, Yachio declines because he doesn't want random people getting hurt, and Mifuyu at this point disappears using illusion magic, because we know that Mifuyu's personal magic is illusion. At this point, then we cut away to the outside of this entire waterway stuff again, and Felicia, she wants to leave, but Yuha doesn't want her to leave. She wants Felicia to move in with her at some point, or stay with her at least. And the team then tries to comfort Felicia by telling her to control her anger, like, no, you can't be a slave to your anger, or something like this. But Felicia doesn't really want this, and she gets really sad and mad, and Iruha then really comforts Felicia, and Yachio invites Felicia to stay over, at least for the night, although we can see that it wasn't just for the night. Yachio then really invites Felicia for any amount of time. She basically has Felicia move in, even though she doesn't specifically state that. Like I said, she just states, first off, for one night. Then Iroha gets this call of her parents that she gets to stay at a boarding house. And this is the last lucky thing that happens. So Iroha gets to move in to Mikasuki Villa, which you also see in the after credits scene, that Iroha moves in with Yachio and Felicia, and Tsuruno is also there because Tsuruno is like the mascot of the group. And it all ends with this mysterious message that she gets on her phone, which we know is from Ai-chan, because the message says, "Are you a magical girl? And if you are, please help me." How this continues, of course, we know that Ai-chan is trying to get help for Iroha to rescue Sana. And here's a really nice and cool bonus, because, you know, Japanese people, they love their puns. And not just puns, they also like using the names for numbers to mean something. They like using numbers as words. So if we look at the time, it's 12:43. If you do 1 plus 2, get 3. 3 in Japanese, san. 4 plus 3 is 7. In Japanese, nana. San, nana, san, nana, sana. Oh! I love this shit. I love details like this. So we already see that, of course, next up we're gonna have to deal with Sana, who has a way more tragic backstory than Felicia. Probably. It's up there. And the end card is Cono Brillianto Artisto Aliragre, the 4 Magius, who is going to make appearance probably in 2 episodes from now. Potentially next episode is maybe some part of after credits stinger, or right before the credits is like the cliffhanger, we might see her. But I think it's most likely we're gonna see her in 2 episodes from now. Next episode, well, whatever, we're gonna see what next episode happens. First off though, now let's talk about the stuff at the end that I wanted to mention. Yeah, we didn't get a leg break. I really wanted a leg break, guys. And a gut punch. I mean, the gut punch wasn't that important because the gut punch isn't really that big a meme, but at least the leg break. It didn't really fit in with the rest because the Nays aren't really that much of a focus. They focus more on some other stuff, and the Nays just doppel. And once the doppel is over, Mifuyu just appears, so there's not really any time for leg break to happen. I'm sad that it didn't happen. I can understand why it didn't happen, but can you like give me, Curry? Can you like somehow get the entire animation staff to like make a 2-minute OVA of just Yachio breaking some legs? Like, come on, I want to see some leg break. That said, what else was happening? We have more focus on Felicia because they really wanted to use this arc to get us used to Felicia and really introduce her a lot more than the game did, because in the game it was more about the rumor itself and how they're dealing with the rumor than it was about Felicia. Felicia sort of got sidelined during all of this, but in the anime they put a lot more effort and focus on making sure that you get to know Felicia better. And they then, of course, with the redesigned Owasa rules, they made sure that the Owasa rules are also more important to what's actually going on. Like we once again see the lucky countdown going down all the time, and we have that one final lucky thing being Iroha being able to move in. So that is now woven more into the story, other than this weird countdown that was happening in the game. Weird thing. So I do like where they now put their focus with this, put more focus on Felicia, more focus on how these new Uwasa rules actually impact everything. But something that I already mentioned way earlier with Tsuruno's introduction and Kaide's or Team Kamore's introduction is that I feel maybe they're still going a little bit too much on the characters. Of course, we're going to have to work with these characters for a whole bunch more episodes, maybe a second season as well if it happens. So it makes sense that the game wants to get us, or the anime wants to get us interested more into these characters, but they are using it at the cost of the overarching narrative. So I thought that this was like the perfect time to really get the viewer hooked on the Wings of Magius, because this is like something really new that we never had in Madoka Magica, that there's like an evil organization or just an organization of people trying to accomplish something, because usually it was just characters in a group all trying to follow their own goal and they're clashing within those goals. But now we really have a big organization, this nameless organization of faceless people that are trying to do something. And you could have really used this to get people hooked on this idea and set up a lot of stuff that happened in the future as well. But I think if they did that, they would have to spread out this episode over 2 episodes. And you don't have infinite episodes, so I guess they didn't want to do that. And by, I don't want to say rushing, but by compressing everything into this episode, they, I guess, figured that it's more important for the long run to maybe have Felicia be more important, even though I personally don't really care that much, and I would have loved to see more going on with the feathers. But I guess that's just where I put my focus versus what where Inu Curry wanted to put their focus. So yeah, that's just the way it goes. So I think there was some missed opportunities with this episode. Overall, I said with the review, the non-spoiler review, that I didn't like this episode that much. That's just personal opinion. I think objectively this was still a pretty good episode. Especially the art, the flashback at the beginning looked nice. It was the central cutout was in 4:3, which I think was intentional, because if you see something that's 4:3, it looks old, because it reminds me of CRT. So it immediately looks old, something from the past, because it uses 4:3. Interesting bit right there. Of course, the fighting looked nice for the most part. In general, I like the way this episode looked. I like the details that it had, the arena gray, the minions being splotched with paint, the Beatrice Cenci illusions that happened. We see Felicia's witch at the beginning, which ties into her backstory and everything. I really like all of these details that are going on. So I still think it's a great episode. Personally, I just wanted to have a bit more. I just wanted more. At least the Wings of Magus are, like I said, more reasonable and less one-sidedly portrayed as they were in the game. So going forth, I really like that bit, and I hope it continues to be great. Can we break someone else's legs, maybe? Please break someone's legs. I want to see Jetro breaking legs. I really want it. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this and want to see more, and I'll see you guys next time.